Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Ken Neville. I am on the co-chair of the Education Committee for the TEA Western North America Board. Very excited to have this topic of AI and the Creative Toolkit today. Thank you all for joining. Quick caveat that what we're going to be talking about today with our esteemed panelists is really just whetting everyone's appetite for what's possible in this world. This is not necessarily an endorsement by the TEA of any specific technology or advocating one way or the other about whether you should use AI or how you should use it. This is just a conversation with some experts who are using it in their fields in the hopes that that helps inspire you guys to use it productively in your own environments. With that said, we'll jump right in. I'm going to introduce Kathleen Cohen, who is our fearless host. Kathleen has been an industry leader for many years. She just started the TEA Technology Education Series with our current president, Darren Brown, some years ago. She's been a strategist in AI and extended reality for over 25 years. She was the founder of the Collaboratorium, a consultancy about XR and AI. She's been executive producer with DreamWorks, IBM, Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, and others. She's on the advisory board of the Aurea engine, a digital twin platform that combines GIS, AI, and the Unreal Gaming Engine to visualize scenarios for city planning. She's also on the advisory board of Holoride, which is a thing we were just talking about before the session started about the really cutting edge thing that Audi Innovation did a couple of years ago. And she was the jury chair on the recent Aurea Awards at Europa-Park in Germany. And she's super connected to a lot of really cutting edge folks, including our other panelists. And she, as part of her introduction, she will help you get to know all of our other panelists. So for now, I will turn it over to Kathleen. I will be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions, please throw them in the chat and we'll get it going from there. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much, Ken. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, it's so good to see all these familiar faces. So thanks, Ken and Andy and Darren, our speakers, the TEA community, everyone for supporting this vision, because I'm going to share a little bit of my industry overview, no slides here. So last year, AI usage in the workplace, it went up. People's confidence in using AI went down. So more adoption, more uncertainty. Artists and creatives in particular are shy about sharing how and when they use AI, walking a tightrope between a desire for ease, a sense of guilt about not doing enough of their own work, and the fear that they're paving the road toward their redundancy, or worse, irrelevance. Last month, I was on a panel, an art and tech festival. I sat with an artist who was so anti-AI, it felt like a part of his identity. It made me want to double down on the fact that AI is a new species that deserves a chance, a digital species. And look, I named my company, the Collaboratorium, for a reason, because I always am on the side of collaboration, including collaboration with man and the machine. So that's not to say that fear and hesitations are completely unjustified. These things are changing fast, like the definition of work, almost as fast as the technology every 4 to 6 months. I don't know if you saw it, but Snapchat today laid off 1,000 people. Kept secret until the deed was done, blaming AI. Welcome to the autonomy economy on the heels of the attention economy. The definition of work is changing. And that gap between using AI and trusting it, between what employees know and what their bosses imagine, is the moment we're in actually right now. It's not the fear, it's not the hype, it's something in between. And there's a word that I came across recently that says it all, initially mentioned by Jason Matheny, who's the president and CEO of RAND, during his interview for a film on AI. He mentioned the need to balance the known promises of AI with the unknowable perils of agentic AI. So people started calling him an apocalyptimist. One of the filmmakers immediately said, that might be the name of the film, and it actually is. The AI Doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptimist. Apocalyptic times, best suited for optimists. So that's us in this room right now, standing in the only honest place to stand. I've been building and storytelling worlds my whole career, starting with animation and games from the earliest days back from PlayStation 1 and Xbox, then through themed entertainment and attractions, through VR, AR, MR, XR, through the early days of digital twins, where we're using different words for the same idea back then because the idea was still maturing in utero. I was in the room back when Disney Parks and Resorts introduced the first gen idea of the Magic Band, a wristband that actually remembered who you were and what you liked, not just your credit card number. And that felt really advanced back then, and it feels like the beginning of a sentence, frankly, right now. For the past 12 years, I've been working under the title that I didn't choose but have come to own, a tech humanist. It came out of my time at Disney where I learned or relearned that experiences isn't something you put on a screen. It's something that happens inside of us, within our bodies. Disney didn't just build rides or bridges or tunnels. They built emotional architecture, which you might know within the TEA as narrative architecture. This January, I was at Europa-Park in Germany as the jury chair for our 8th annual Aurea Award show. The theme was Through the Looking Glass and a nod to people who engineer wonder for a living, and before whom I presented my longtime practice of what I call in real life, on a screen, and in world, designed for all at once. An evolution from designing layers of information to blending realities in real time. I think of it as an early entry point for how most experiences can and should be actually built. Not because AI makes it technically more possible, but because the market's going to demand it. And I wish I was kidding about this, but I'm serious. Part of society's healing in the next 5 years is actually on us, those of us in this room. So how do we work with all of the front and back end tech for our experience design pipelines without losing what makes our work totally irreplaceable? That's the question. That question actually is why we envisioned this panel for this community. Agentic AI is coming, and it's a system far more powerful than generative AI, which is a tool similar also, but more powerful than the V1 text applications of ChatGPT and Claude, which you all have to understand and contend with. Demis Hassabis, who founded DeepMind and he won a Nobel Prize in chemistry, grounds his understanding of AI in neurotransmission. But the question of what intelligence actually is can't be answered by just looking deep into the human brain. Because if you guys were to cut into my brain and look inside, you wouldn't find my IQ or my memories or be able to download my intelligence. So I find myself asking different questions. Where's the wisdom in all this intelligence? What's the whole point of intelligence without any wisdom? Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, he's also a visionary too, in his case, fueling the AI revolution that makes a lot of everything of what we dream possible. But what we do requires more than compute power. What we do is closer to harnessing wisdom than tapping into intelligence, and that distinction actually matters. AI can process everything, but it can't feel the drop in your stomach when a ride launches. So here's what I know from 30 years of designing experiences. Our industry does not run on the analytical side of intelligence. It runs on the somatic response, using all of our 5 senses and more. On the body's knowing, distinct from the mind's processing, on meeting people in their core emotion before they even arrive. And our sector has been in the business of building safety and happiness this whole time. We ask people to check their disbelief at the gate, follow us somewhere unknown. And they do it willingly because we've earned their trust, and that's a skill. And right now, it's exactly what AI needs most. AI is making the same ask of the world that we've been making for decades. Most industries don't know how to make that ask, but we do because we've been practicing it. What we build isn't just entertainment, it's modern community infrastructure, a place where cultural bonding isn't accidental, it's designed with over 200 career disciplines involved. But now we have to design and blend 3 levels, an in real life experience, an on-screen experience, and an in-world experience, in, which was once a limitation that now is actually the medium. As a side, in Indigenous design thinking, there's a concept about prioritizing the verb over the noun, the act of becoming rather than the thing itself, the ing rather than the thing. The emphasis is on the journey. So we don't build a park, we build portals to new worlds. Disney called it always plussing. Walt's philosophy that you never finish a project, you just move forward forever. And that practice of continuous, sensory, emotionally intelligent iterations makes this industry the ideal lab for perpetual AI-human connection. In my immersive XR world, reality has always been negotiable. That's not a new idea. It's a founding premise. The difference now is that more people want a seat at the table where reality actually gets decided. So we're sitting in a creative renaissance, and some might call it a reckoning. And the speakers gathered here today are expert negotiators. They've earned these seats. They're not theorists and not futurists per se. They're people who are in the inside of the pipeline right now, doing the work, using the tools, making the mistakes, making the breakthroughs. They represent our core community ethos, the people who have always built the future so others could experience it as well. Michael Libby is building with digital twin technologies through Worldbuildr and plotting multi-sensory experiences in-world before a single brick is even placed in real life. Logan Olson is building humanoid robots with AI personalities. He comes from PlayStation, Google, Imagineering. He's literally asking, where does intelligence end and experience begin? Matt Spremulli is prototyping the future of creative production at Autodesk, where so much of what the AEC industry software runs on meets the AI that's rewriting how we use it. Dolce Wang is using AI across cultures to explore the human story, working at the exact intersection of this conversation. Technology in service of something deeply, irreducibly human. And Kyle Shannon created Sydney, an artificial love story, a musical about the very technology that helped make it possible. That's not a use case, that's a proof of concept for everything we've been talking about. So, from the world being built to the story told inside of it, we are the Themed Entertainment Association community on AI by nature and by necessity. We are actually apocalyptimists. Not here to predict peril over promise, here to keep designing for tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So, thanks for sharing any of your thoughts inside the chat window. And with that, I'd like to welcome Michael Libby up next. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me and see my screen. My name is Michael Libby, and I want to start here. I'm going to start my timer just to make sure I stay on time to let everybody talk. I want to start here in the movie industry. The movie industry is going through a really rough time right now, and VFX artists and writers and concept artists and even actors, they're all scared that AI is going to take their jobs. But I am here to say that AI is actually an opportunity to tell stories that are bigger than we have possibly imagined before. Something like Avatar takes $300 million to make, and something like Clerks from Kevin Smith, who spoke at our most recent SATE conference, Kevin Smith had $27,000 in his pocket and was forced to write what he knew and film where he worked and shoot in black and white. And there's a really stark difference here. Movies have budgets, and they can get very expensive. In contrast, we have something like comic books. Now, comic books, you see on the left, is basically a conversation between two people in one scene with a simple background. And on the right, you see a page that is an epic space battle with TIE fighters and Star Destroyers. And what I want to point out here is that both of these pages cost the same amount to make. The artist charges a page rate, and it doesn't matter if there's no 3D models to make, there's no VFX to add, it's the same cost. And this is the type of thinking that we can now apply to other mediums because of AI. It also means that we can change the process, and we don't necessarily have to think about it as a linear process anymore. We don't have to lock in design decisions early and then stick to them because of the schedule or a release date. What we're seeing here is a 3D model that was created before the concept art. And this 3D model is then being transformed in a sketch style to concept art. And this is something, if you take nothing else away from what I'm speaking about today, I want you to think about transformation. There's so much hype around AI generation, generating things from scratch, typing in a quick prompt and getting a video or an image. But there's not enough talk about AI as transformation, taking something you've already created and transforming it into something else. And it's not just a simple prompt anymore. Sora shut down because it was very expensive to run, and it was just generating slop. And slop is a term that, if you haven't heard it already, it's what people are calling a lot of these short AI-generated videos. But there's a difference between slop and premium content, and there always has been. And there are professional tools that can provide transformations instead of quick generations. And what I'm showing you here today is Comfy UI. And this is a tool where you have nodes, and each node transforms a video or an image in a certain way. but you already need to have the vocabulary and the learned knowledge of being a filmmaker. You need to know that the hue and saturation is off. You need to know that a certain image needs to be cropped or rotated. And you need to deploy these tools, and each one is going to transform your image or your video slightly. And this is how you can generate, this is how real professionals generate premium content instead of just casually typing in a short prompt and generating slop. Sometimes it's even harder than the old way we used to do things. Here's an example of a comfy UI workflow where maybe this was not the right process, and it may have been easier to shoot on location and just capture everything in camera because it can get out of control. But these are the professional tools that people are using, particularly in the VFX community. Comfy UI is creating all new workflows, and it really becomes less about your actual hard skills, more about your design thinking and the way that you can create proprietary workflows for yourself. That's really how you create value for yourself as a designer with these AI tools. Now I want to show you this work by Shahil Mitra. He took an image of a fox and put it into a tool called Style Frame Turntable, which let him get multiple angles of the fox. Then he brought some of the angles inside Comfy UI and generated the 3D model of the fox and used that model to then make a basic animation where the fox looks around and goes away. Then he brought one of the frames of the base animation back into Style Frame in order to generate a beautiful photoreal reference image and combined the animation and reference imagery to create this amazing result. So the photorealism is now easy, but that doesn't mean that it's not slop. And this is where, as content creators, the premium value comes from you as a creative and as a storyteller. Even if it's photorealistic, it can still be soulless and boring. But now there are fewer barriers to creating something visually amazing. So as a creative storyteller, think of it like having a page rate for a comic book. It doesn't matter what type of story you're telling anymore. Now here's something. This is the work of an architect named Tim Fu. And Tim is taking his sketches, his architectural drawings, and taking a single frame and then doing text to video to animate these sketches and bringing them to life. And while this is visually appealing and looks really cool, we have to be careful about this because this has no basis in reality. This is just the AI making up where these guests are walking and how many guests are even there. So while it's kinetic and it looks cool, this can trick the user into thinking how this experience is actually going to operate, when in reality, there has been no operational thought put into this. So that's why at Worldbuildr, we're not chasing photorealism with the Unreal game engine. We're doing something more akin to gray boxing. So here we have a video that was captured in our engine at Worldbuildr. And this 3D model, by the way, was provided by Heidi Hirsch of Reveal Studio, who I believe is on this call. Thank you, Heidi. And you can see here, I'm going to play the video. This is just a gray box. It's not super detailed. It's not, classic Unreal PlayStation 5 photo reel. But what it does have, it's just a short 7-second clip there. What it does have is autonomous agents, those people walking around that are making decisions. And they are AI agents that are determining what to do, where to go, which museum installations to check out and whatnot. So all of that logic is the real value here and the statistics behind the digital twins that we create. Now, in contrast, I'm going to show you another video. And this one may look the same, but this one, we took the first frame of that previous video that I showed you, only the first frame, and then we used a tool called Runway to animate it. And it looks nearly identical, but the behavior patterns of those guests are completely made up. It was just inferred by the AI, and it's not based on any actual values or any actual programming. So what this means is that photorealism has been tremendously devalued. And it's really about the data behind it. You can, if you want something that's really representative, you can just gray box it now and add the photorealism as the last touch, and it becomes the cheapest part of the process. Here we have some work from Tahir Paladi that proves my point. He just gray boxes this scene in Maya, and he doesn't have to add detail. He's just adding very simple shapes, very simple geometry, but then he's going in and he's using a comfy UI workflow, not to generate, but to transform. And he adds reference images and reference videos even, and creates his own custom workflows to transform a very simple scene into a very beautiful rendering. So the whole process has changed. And as I said at the beginning, you don't really need to lock in certain design decisions anymore. You can go back and, change the gray box layout at the very last minute if what you want to create at the end is photorealistic media. You don't need a 3D modeler to go back and change the model or optimize or add more polygons. You can just take 2D content and transform it like I'm showing you right here. And then the last thing that I want to share, I'm going to share my screen, is how some of this AI tech is affecting game development. And I'll get a screen share going here. We're going to do a quick live demo. Live demos are always fun. So here we have a new scene in Unity. Get this out of the way. And we have Claude Code here on the side. And this is how easy it is to do something like a gray box that we can then capture footage from and then transform using Comfy UI. I'm going to verbally ask Unity to basically make a simple game for me. So I'm going to speak my command now. Create functionality so that when the user presses the spacebar, 50 spheres fall from the sky with normal physics. Every time they bounce, they change color. After 10 seconds, the balls disappear. Make sure that all of the balls that are generated appear in the main camera view frustum. And then I'm going to submit that prompt. And this is where this is not super compelling content because we're watching the AI actually process that prompt. But this is far more than a generating an image or video or audio file. Where we've now given an AI agent permission to explore an entire project directory and write scripts and create interactivity and functionality. And for someone like me, who was an English major, a creative writing major, who learned how to code late in life and always really struggled with it, this has really unlocked my full potential because it really becomes about it really becomes all about the prompt. What do I want? And do I have the vocabulary and the education to describe exactly what I want? And there is no more technical barrier. I don't have to hire a ton of spend a lot of money to make a huge complicated game. I can just do it all by myself. So this has drastically transformed my workflow and transformed the roadmap for Worldbuildr and the rate at which we can implement features. The amount of investment that we need has plummeted because we can now do all of this stuff all by ourselves with a small core team. And yes, this is going to cost people jobs. Software engineers that work at large companies, you're probably not going to need as many of them anymore. But on the flip side, if you're a small startup, you have suddenly, it feels like you have a superpower because now you can compete with the big guys. So I'm going to, this prompt should come back any second, and then we're going to play the scene and see what we get. And I'll just add here while we're waiting that coding with Claude, it's really nice because you do get to take these breaks every time you type a prompt in. If you have a guitar or if you're an artist, or have some kind of hobby, you know, these prompts, when it comes to coding, they can take 10, you know, if they're very complicated, they can take 10, 15, 20 minutes to come back. And you know, you have these nice breaks during the day that you can use to kind of work on your hobby, then come back, do another prompt, and so on and so forth.
In the
Yes,
spirit of AI, I would suggest move forward and then come back to this.
absolutely. Why don't we throw it over to Logan, and then we can check in on the progress here
Yeah,
after
it'll
he
be fun to
presents.
see. Yeah, it'll be fun to see. Thank you.
All right. Hey guys. I guess I'll share my thing here. How's everybody doing? Doing great. Good. All right. And I like that Libby had a timer. I will also do said timer here. Yeah. So I'm a robot guy. Here's some screenshots of robot stuff. In fact, you know, I'm gonna just eat in my own time with random ad libs. One thing. So this is gonna eat it. I'm gonna share this just because I think it's so interesting. Can you guys see this like presentation here? Here, maybe I can make it full screen like this. So it's fascinating. Like for the longest time, this is a quick aside, just a direct response to what Libby was showing, because I think it's super rad. That we thought we were gonna have to do these animatics in rough 3D to capture real physics, and then skin it, right? But what we're finding is that these video models, like the ones that Libby demonstrated with Runway or Dance 2, the latest one, or especially the ones from like NVIDIA and Google, have physics built in. And so now they're actually using the generative video models to train the robots using hallucinated data, which I think is just absolutely wild. In fact, there's some that do something in real time where they give it a picture, it hallucinates the whole video, and then it uses that video to decide where to put the grabber to pick up an orange or whatever. Anyways, cool side. I just think it's pretty neat. All right, so yeah, I'm a robot guy. But I haven't always, and I'm going to talk about robot stuff, but I haven't always been a robot guy. As alluded to before, most of my career I was actually a designer. I only have fine art degrees. Anything I did with computers, it was kind of like just figuring out as I go. And in that spirit, rather than focus this whole micro talk on robots, I thought maybe a better use of this time, better use of this 8 minutes, is to talk about some of the tools I use, the strategies I use, to see if I can make you feel more empowered to use our ML or use it more. Because I found with this technology, like there's nothing like actually going hands-on and practically using it as much as possible. You know, Michael was talking about, I think, well, multiple people have been talking about Claude Code, right? And Claude Code is, we should talk about it. But in the spirit of like wade, swim, dive, I'd argue that's more swim, dive. And to get started, let's wade, right? And I think everybody's got the right instinct about how to wade, which is to open up your browser and go to ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini. There's a lot of these. This is like, I call them the three wise men. They're kind of the trifecta. And I encourage you to continue to use those, but with three caveats. One, you have to pay for them. The free versions are old. They're no good. Don't use them. And you really do need to pay for all of them. That's a total of $60. It's about having a Starbucks latte a day. It's worth it because they're all spiky. There's this idea in machine learning that this is spiky intelligence, which means it can be PhD in one thing and a complete dunce in another thing, and there's really no correlation. And then every single machine learning model, these LLMs, they're all spiky in different ways. And so you really do need, especially for complex problems, to kind of cross-check them. And lastly, any experience that's older than a month is kind of invalid or stale. So if you say like, well, that didn't work last month, it's like, you should probably try it again. I think it was the CEO of Box who was like, this is the only technology he's seen where if it didn't work this week, try again next week. So outside of those LLM tools, we were talking about, you know, generative 3D and generative imagery. This is my favorite one, so I thought I'd share with you. It's called Fall.ai. What's really cool about it is, you know, a lot of these services try to do value add, like turn them into like a video editor or only serve their one model like Runway. Fall's just like a repository of every model, like just directly. So if you want to try Runway, Dance, Huan for 3D, Microsoft's Trellis to generate 3D out of images, you can go here. The prices are very reasonable. You're talking like 2 cents a generation if you're talking about 3D, high-res 3D model, and you can cross-compare them because it's really important to compare these things against each other, right? So check it out. And if you're interested in that sort of stuff, if you're interested in learning about these different models as they come out, how people are using them creatively, this is one other thing I'd suggest just getting on board with is following this newsletter, things I think are awesome. Lynn does an amazing job collating not just like the models that are coming out, but like interesting interactive uses, creative uses, like interactive art, And it's not just machine learning, it's also procedural generation. But like if you were to choose a single source to ask like, hey, what's going on with the creative application of machine learning in computer technology, I recommend this. Now, let's go back to Claude Code. Actually, I don't use Claude Code anymore. I said these things go stale, they change. Actually, I use Codex now. Next month, who knows, right? Show no loyalty. Do not get annual subscriptions that are $200 a month because you might cancel it. But both these things, regardless of which one you're going to use, they're incredibly powerful, but they all use this technology called the terminal. And I have found most people are absolutely freaked out by the terminal. And if you don't know what the terminal is, go on your computer. You're going to be able to find it. It's a program that emulates a 1970s teletype machine where you type in random incantations like this, curl dash FSSL. And I remember when I first saw it 20 years ago, it freaked me out. And I didn't have LLMs back then. It's really, and I tried to teach a friend recently how to use Claude Code. Super smart dude. And clearly the terminal turned it into a hurdle. And I want to be the person who says, don't worry about it. You can do it. You, whoever you are who's listening to this, you can actually use the terminal. And here's how. Take a screenshot, paste it into your LLM and ask, how do I do this? And this is actually a very effective way to live your life on a computer now. If you don't know how to do something, just take a screenshot of it or take a picture of your phone, of your monitor and ask. I don't know if you guys heard about that 20-year-old who built a nuclear reactor. This is how he did it. He just asked good questions, was curious, and kept taking pictures and sending them to Claude. I think the silly way of saying this is, I think Sam Altman said, you can just do things. So now let's talk about robots, my version of you can just do things. Last year, I was an executive at PlayStation doing machine learning, and I saw that humanoid robots were blowing up. And I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job and do robots. So I bought this robot from China, a Unistry G1, and I taught myself reinforcement learning. And I think everyone wanted me to tell them what reinforcement learning was. Whenever you see a robot doing a breakdance and running into a wall, or Olaf or BDX stories, they're using reinforcement learning. And if you saw the beginning of I don't know who watched the Neutron movie, I guess I did. The beginning of the Neutron movie is a great sort of like visceral version of reinforcement learning, where basically you have a tabula rasa of a neural network, and you're going to get penalties and rewards. And it's going to try to maximize that reward and reduce that penalty. And just it's like a multiverse, right? Living in faster than real time. So you're talking like these robots are living eons, going from flopping on the ground to learning how to crawl like a spider. To you, it's just 30 minutes. But it's pretty incredible. But yeah, I use a program called NVIDIA Isaac Lab. If you're to do this now, if you're ever interested in this, I was talking to Creative Technologies who'd never done this before, and he was able to get his robot to breakdance in 2 days using a new thing called, well, A, he used Claude Code, and B, he used a thing called Mujiko Lab. I think I included in the link. You can get started in a weekend if you have like an okay GPU. And when I did that, when I made a scary crawling guy, it was all procedural. There was no mocap animation I was mimicking. Most of the time when you see this, just as an FYI, if you're interested in things, you're using mocap animation. And what's cool is there's models now that can take monocular video, aka the video coming out of your phone, and turn it into a motion capture file. And then you can take that motion capture file and use other open source models to map it to your robot. So you now have a robot that's doing the motions from your video. And this all takes about 3 minutes. And it was really a hassle to keep opening these different programs. So I just vibe coded in the morning this interface, this vid to booster interface that hooked up to like Google Photos. I don't really know how it works. It just works because that's how the agentic coding works, right? And now I'm working on bringing this character to life. So I have this little dude. You can kind of see him like blurry behind me. And I vibe coded cartoon eyes. It has a share on it now to make it low res. And you're putting together vision, speech to text generation that's controlling its, its behavior as well as its language. And that's why I'm doing the mocap. And I thought I'd share with you the interface. This is a complete eye chart. The interface that's used to drive this character. So this is the living character automated interfaces. Chances are you can't see much here outside of it's complex. It has a timeline. It has many different events on it and an inspector for those events that allow you to figure out why the character said a certain thing or saw a certain thing. I think what's wild about this is this is live. This works. And it was completely done from scratch in the last 3 to 4 weeks using only Codex. Neither I nor anybody else has ever seen or written directly a line of code, nor knows how it works from a coding standpoint. And you know what models it's using and you interrogate it. But I think that's absolutely wild that you can write something of this complexity over that amount of time without actually interfacing with the code. Which leads me to this favorite. I really like this meme about how software development has evolved over the years. It used to be you'd have to build the whole thing slowly or sketching and only have the product at the end. Now with agile development, which is very modern, you always have to have something you're working with. And now you make something that's very rococo and then have to pare it down. And so I have to imagine like a week or two from now, I'll probably be pared down a little bit. So I'm not going to walk through all the different steps here, but I did want to call out one thing that I think everyone's kind of sleeping on, which is vision intelligence. Everyone knows you can drag a screenshot into Gemini or whatever, and it'll talk, and you can interrogate it, as you alluded to. But it's amazing how much can be done in real time locally. So the fact that you can type in arbitrary text strings like rude gesture, and it actually knows how to bounding box the middle finger, or bounding box the skull, or in more than one frame a second, have one-line descriptions of what it's seeing on the camera. And that's running on a fairly low rent computer, like a $2,000 computer. To me, that's wild. And something, if I was in say the photo taking business, I would be interested in. And if you're interested in doing this, I'm not going to tell you how, but there's a cool feature on Aurea called Deep Research, where I'll go for 15, 20 minutes and draw up like a 4 to 5 to 6 page PDF. And I encourage you to do that. And after you find your models, you're going to have to benchmark them, figure out which ones are good or bad. And that's my this is so sad thing, but I'm going to fire it off to the next dude who I think is going to talk about benchmarks. Thanks for your time.
That was awesome, Logan. That was great.
Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and share screen. Hopefully you all can see what I see. Can I get a little validation here? Are you guys able to see?
Yep.
Amazing. Okay. So yes, gonna riff off of some of Logan's benchmarking aspirations, but I will also call back to a little bit of Michael's comments, because you'll see a lot of repetition in the same philosophy. I'll get to benchmarking super quickly in a slightly different way, measuring performance of the actual output from generative AI or agentic workflows. But I'm going to start by just calling out that I would like to reframe how we approach creativity in the age of AI. So first off, what even is creativity? A lot of people say it's about having ideas, and I think I would challenge that by basically saying it's nice to have ideas, but creativity is when we start to put it into the world. And the translation of putting it into the world is traditionally done and has been done for a variety of times through storytelling. And so we put down ideas, writing it, and we break down complex ideas into acts or scenes, the way characters might behave, and how things are broken down into more kind of nuanced interactions. And so all of this makes language pretty powerful. But it is also meta in the sense that we can give each other notes about the story itself and how to guide it. And language is also ambiguous. So here's a quick, super fast pop quiz. This generative AI set 4 images all came from one prompt, one word prompt. So if you want to come off mute or toss it into the chat, take a wild guess at what you think it might be.
Hot.
So close. Yes, it's basically heat. And so this brings up the next point, which is
Hey,
that
Matthew, just to let you know, you've got 2 boxes that are slightly covering up your slide in the upper right, like whatever window's floating over it, it's kind of covering up your slide.
how's that?
That's good.
Oh, sweet. Thanks, man. So yeah, language can be super powerful, but language can also be really ambiguous. And we'll see here that if you were to prompt something expected, like a door, it's really cool. But it is a super big challenge when you cannot get exactly what you want. So if we have something expected, like a door, maybe a script calling for something like a door, what happens when you start to have a little bit more complexity? And sorry, my voice is a little shot from getting a small cold. But if you had to deal with complexity of, let's say, an old room with a new door, which is half open. Now, I know that some of the newer models are able to kind of get through some of this nuance here. I'm using Midjourney V7 to generate some of the images you're seeing. The reality is that having that level of control and precision and directability is still a super big technical challenge and a creative challenge. And so if we were to take this exact reference here, of breaking down how we would approach this creative brief of working from an old room with a new door, which is half open. We would start to go from, let's say, big picture down to the detail, where you start with, let's say, the reference of the room and the mood and the scene, and you start to think about the components that go in there, breaking it down. How do I deal with, let's say, the half open part? Until you start to get to similar concepts that we might be used to in, let's say, making a scene, which is breaking it down into materials, angles, geometry, animation curves, etc. And if we plot this onto a super quick graph where the vertical is about, let's say, the resolution of the medium itself, and the horizontal is about how we interact with the medium, we can start to put down where we are seeing some of these tools. And so classically, a lot of Autodesk tools have been in the lower quadrant of really strong precision and really strong detail. And we're seeing a lot of AI tools such as ChatGPT, Midjourney, a lot of the image generators up in the upper right quadrant. And this kind of calls out this missing middle, I would say, this kind of gap of where you can start to actually get a lot of where the creative control is, which is being able to subdivide down a task and being able to give it creative iteration with control. Where you have, let's say, control with surprise, which is what we would normally want. Control with surprise is ultimately what we're trying to get to. And so I'll reference this idea of multi-level creative control as I go forward. So I will mention a couple of experiments that we're doing in Autodesk Research. So I'm just going to flash the safe harbor statement. Don't make any purchasing decisions on what I say or show. Just super quick kind of cover. And I'll tell you what we're doing in visual storytelling. So similar to Michael Libby, let's start with, let's say, film as a quick example. So most ideas to get us into visual storytelling are going to break down from idea generation to script, characters, world, how action sequences can break down, storyboarding until before we get to, let's say, cameras and rendering control. And the ultimate desire, and I think we're hearing this from both Michael and from Logan, is this desire to be able to just circumvent the traditional waterfall process. And we're also interested in how we can actually build tools that circumvent that process, but give you a lot of precision and control, but also the delight and excitement that comes with generative AI along the way. And so each of these different steps, going from pre-production of story development down to previs, kind of mapping on what you're seeing Pixar's usual waterfall process is, has become a really important point of inspiration for us. Each of these little boxes is showing some of the different experiments that our small team has been able to prototype really quickly. All of them involving AI or AI agents, and all of them starting to address each of these different components, either individually or in combination. And so here's a little video of, let's say, starting from a script, and I'll just forward it along in the benefit of time, but being able to break down a script, bringing in a simple image reference, translating that image reference into a interactable and editable floor plan of that scene, being able to visualize that scene in an interactable and editable way. Again, this is referencing Michael Libby's gray box philosophy, so that you can very quickly start to see what an idea is like, but also have precision with things like layers, timing controls, very simple interfaces that get even novice users the ability to tell stories. This is a slightly higher fidelity version that we've generated in the same capacity, mostly to start playing out what each of the generative characters are able to do. This is, again, hearkening back to Michael's reference of having intelligent agents. These are not just referencing some of the script, but they're able to start interacting with one another dynamically in the scene. And again, provide you with that element of delight and surprise, and give you total control of being able to set your camera, set your view. And again, it's really gray box kind of fidelity that we're going for, things that you can very quickly adjust along the fly. And so this is what some of that output might look like. Again, really rough and crude, but in the same way that Michael was showing that you're able to skin on different effects, either through Comfy UI or other generative videos, you're able to get much higher fidelity output at the end of it. So one more quick example that I'll show, and I might not be able to get to everything, is a tool that we have pushed into product, which is called Motion Maker. And Motion Maker, for those of you that use Maya, you might already see it being launched, but it basically gives you really easy high-level control to manipulate and bring characters to life, kind of like this quick flock of dogs or group of dogs that you're seeing simply by point and click control. And in the same way that an LLM predicts the next letter in a sentence, this basically gives you the next frame of motion. It's learned from data that artists are really comfortable with, motion capture data or keyframe animation. And I think a really important part for us to talk about at some point is where data is trained on and how it is useful to artists that have IP control. And so what we've done here in this example is basically trained it on our own data that we've done ourselves in-house or bought explicitly for training purposes. Dog prints were provided in terms of giving people consent. And not only that, but we're turning the keys over now to the artists so that they can open the black box and train data on their own, locally, on-premise, no cloud compute. It's able to do things like realistic characters or fantasy. We've opened it up to new archetypes like horses and dogs, and we're starting to do more. So in the little bit of overtime, I'll just go super, super quick if that's cool, just to say that, hey, it's not just for media and entertainment, for film only. We're seeing the same philosophy transcribe into real world architecture as well. The same examples we saw of going from pre-design to schematics to construction administration. We're all feeling the same pinches of wanting to break waterfall processes and have creativity that stretches across a number of different fields. And a theme park is a really good stress test example because we have things like lands where you have to define a container of what an experience might be, what belongs and doesn't. We have hard constrictions or restrictions of ride systems, of safety and throughput, guest flow. And so if we start to nail down what a signature attraction zone might be or building, it's really important to kind of imagine how we might start to benchmark what the results are coming out of generative AI, and being able to ascribe levels and metrics along the way, whether they're generated by a single generative tool or through multiple agents. And so now I'm just going to quickly flip through an example of what it means to be able to constrain and limit what generative AI is able to do. So changing mostly the building and seeing its impact across themes, emotions, ride systems, operational cost, guest flow, and just see and start to play and being able to constrain the iterations so that you are able to see its immediate impact and repercussion and start to imagine what it might feel like. And you could plug in some of these examples into Michael Libby's Worldbuildr and start to see what those real-term impacts might be. So again, just a few more examples until we take our imagination to the bottom of the sea, or maybe a fantasy world, or maybe completely nothing, until we start to settle down on something that hits the marks that we want, and we can start to drill down further. So I'm just kind of curious to listen to everyone else during the Q&A about what stories on your mind. And if this way of reframing is productive, then it would be really cool to see how it might apply to your workflows. So thank you, and I'll pass it on to the next.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. I love learning about that.
All right, I think I'm next. Thanks, Matt, for that really thoughtful. Like that's pretty exciting because in my presentation, I don't use it in production at all in my workflow because of those constraints of QC and safety for guest experiences. But hey guys, again, my name is Dolce. I'm gonna share my little keynote. Share. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, cool. All right, so I just typed into Claude really quickly. Give me a list of every single AI tool that's currently available. And it was like complete list of every tool isn't possible. Basically, there's literally thousands out there. And so I don't know about you, but oftentimes I feel very overwhelmed with all the AI talk. And when Kathleen was talking about the artist who's like super anti-AI, I think a lot of my friends, especially in the music world, are like, "What?" But I'm also like somewhat closeted that I do actually use a lot of AI in, especially with the immersive experience world. But I think particularly because it's so interdisciplinary and I work a lot between different cultures. So a little bit of background on my end. For me, I feel like for immersive experiences, we were in the business of storytelling, using physical and definitely digital spaces as our canvas. I studied mechanical engineering and film and have done music my whole life. And so, kind of, my work has oftentimes been the intersection of art, technology, and what I love is culture and social issues. Um, I started off at Walt Disney Imagineering, as many of you here have also been part of that family. But I had an interesting role as a creative director within R&D. So I'm oftentimes still like basically the bridge between oftentimes what are siloed departments. But I think for me, it's all about the people, whether oftentimes we design for the guests, but I'm also thinking about the team and then more learning about for myself as well. But just trying to always promote curiosity, if that includes play, growth, learning, connection, that community feel, conviction. I just wanted a word that started with C, but the emotional memory making that we do so well in themed entertainment. But I'm going to default in terms of I made it linear, but of course, as we know, it's very iterative and messy. I'll throw a piece of spaghetti on there usually. But if this is just kind of the default workflow, and I'm assuming a physical, theme park space, where we use our canvas is either architecture or even larger physical space. But where I use AI is actually mostly, I just want to be clear, not more than 50% of human, but in the ideation side of things, I have a lot more of that brainstorming, ideation, R&D, research, use of AI, and then as the project continues, I kind of take it away so that we have more room for the QC. And I think also because I feel like it's the efficiency, the idea of efficiency currently as it is, I don't feel that it's been efficient in the back end of things because there's so much that we have to redo and look through and sift. But I wanted to talk about a little bit of our cross-cultural experience. I was born here in the US, in Texas. I'm a Southern Belle, but I spent the last 10 years in Shanghai and Taiwan, and my family's from Taiwan, and spent many years just trying to bridge the gap of between my own strange background culturally. So this is just an example of last year I was working on the Great Bao'en Temple, which is a 600-year-old temple that has been burned down twice. And we had a very small team of mostly programmers. We had a project manager. We did have a director of plays, theater. But the temple and then the museum was a client. So the museum was the staff. They wanted to tell the story of the Bao'an temple, but in a more modern way. So, eh, click. So I only had a few days as a creative director to fly to Nanjing. And so we had to have these very quick brainstorms. And some folks were a little bit more interested in giving out ideas. But for the most part in Asia, I have found it people are generally more shy, especially there's hierarchy. So as a director, they're usually like, you just tell us what exactly to do. But then we're also dealing with the client. So we actually used Midjourney, but also DeepSeek, because a lot of these tools that we know here in the West, they don't work well with non-English language. And it's very biased. So I just want to throw that out there. And so especially our programmers, they were more comfortable in throwing out ideas, which I thought was really, really cool and experience that they felt empowered by and normally don't experience traditionally. But here was like some rapid workflow of like me sketching on a whiteboard, cleaning it up a little bit, some reference from the museum itself, and then we would create. This one was particularly in Midjourney, but we were able to create more lifelike characters. So, but I would say also there were so many iterations that at the end we did use some of the assets, but we had a professional animator turn that into the final product. Here's another one where it was like, okay, we had this like scene where we wanted to take the camera through these golden dust, but if you look at the whiteboard storyboards that I drew really quickly, we had our programmer, he was able to create these. And then we just kind of went back and forth. So I felt that that was really a unique way that I didn't expect to use AI, but to bring that kind of cultural connection. And there's the Bao'an temple. I also wanted to throw out just a few tips and tricks that I found at least in the creative design process. These are tools that I've used and definitely do not have time to go through all of those tools. But Midjourney, Meshi, I think are very fascinating. And so just quickly some tips and tricks in terms of prompts. A lot of people use Midjourney with like this kind of post-apocalyptic desert, blah, 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 and the style of Miyazaki. But for our purposes in themed entertainment, it's really important to have architectural, physical space types of prompts that include POV and, like the scale, such as small pavilion, gallery space, and then using lighting, like volumetric lighting, misty atmosphere to create that mood. So here are just some samples. Otherwise, they're just things that we're not able to build. And then kind of a new quick like you can do videos, fly through videos. Some are awkward, like that person's face is like turned around. So it's not perfect, but I think that's some new feature that I think is really cool. And then style references that basically you can create consistent styles and characters and mood boards through a series of images. Kind of with the biases, like in 2022 when we were playing around with Midjourney, if in English we say family, you see this top like okay images, and then 家人 I wrote that in Chinese and it was like really abstract and creepy. So there is a bit more improvement. This was this year I did the same test, and then I would say, but it's still very biased back to that quandary. If you say women, why are they like sultry? Like I don't know. And then in Chinese, why it's very you can see the biases here, I would say. So I just wanted you to take that with a grain of salt. And then I think what's exciting, I was playing around with Meshi also. This is just a tree that's outside, being able to import a photo and turn that into a 3D image. And you can choose whether you want it to be like for previs or a model or an animation. So I think that's a very simple tool we can use. Gaussian splatting is also a very cool tool. I tried using Luma AI. This is from a website from Lead and Learning because I didn't have the images. But you can take video, 360 video, import that, and it still takes a lot of time, maybe 8 hours or so. But then turn that into like a previs or for in the gaming engine. And lastly, I just wanted to give a note for, anyone who's a leader in the room, who is a decision maker. This is an example of an actual space that we created in Taiwan, that used AI as part of the guest experience. Guests were able to throw balls with prompts and basically create their own stories to build that community and create their own video. But what I would really insist on is using internal servers for privacy, IP, save the environment. Rafiq Anadol does this as well. Using assistive AI versus decisive, meaning that it assists the workforce instead of replacing. And then just back to that graph of the workflow, just being very mindful of that human versus machine ratio. And we try not to go beyond 50% human, 50% machine. So that's it for me.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Dolce.
you.
The total humanist. I love it.
Yes.
Kyle.
Beautiful.
And Michael, we'll circle back around with you when Kyle's done.
Great.
There we go. Hey everybody, I'm Kyle Shannon. I'm an artist, innovator. My career's been at the intersection of new technology and self-expression or storytelling. I'm a storyteller by training. I have a fine arts degree in acting. I've written screenplays. In the mid 90s, I started one of the first online magazines and one of the first digital agencies. My current company is called Storyvine, which is an automated video storytelling platform. We've been around for 14 years. Not using AI, although we've added some AI things. And then the week ChatGPT came out, I started a thing called the AI Salon, which is a community of AI optimists. And I started the AI Learning Lab, which is I go live nightly talking about AI, just playing with it. And so I want to talk about play as a catalyst for what I'm calling radical self-expression. And let's see. There we go. Before I get started talking about play, this graphic represents there's a thing happening right now where AI is getting better, dramatically faster. It's kind of accelerating away from us. And yet, sort of 83% of people globally don't even really know what AI is. They haven't played with it. So you've got a lot of people that are not using it all, a lot of people resisting it, and then it's accelerating away. And so the 7 economies is the idea that our world is going to kind of shatter into these distinct economies that are basically based on level of AI adoption. So economy 1 is the analog economy. That's basically like, screw it, I'm going to go grow blueberries. And then, the legacy economy is we're not going to use AI at all. And the efficiency economy is we're going to use it a little bit to make what we do more efficient. All the way up to economy 7, which is where, we're going to have a 50 agent company running on a chip where you have a single operator running, multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar companies with just agents on a chip and kind of everything in between. The reason I'm sharing this is just, an interesting exercise to do is think about where are you right now and where do you want to be? One of the things a lot of people are doing is they're like, oh, I want to be a 1 and a 7, or, they're sort of choosing, oh, I'm at a 2, I want to be at a 4, I want to be at a 5. So just thinking about where you are is an interesting thing to do. Another thing to think about, one of the things I hear from people a lot is, what's the sort of biggest misconception about AI? AI right now is kind of like an old time arcade. You can choose not to go in it, but I don't think the arcade's going to close, right? I don't think it's going to go away. And so if you go in it, there's kind of two games you can play with AI. And the first game is us us versus AI, where you're sort of battling AI. And the challenge with that model is the AI is just getting better and better and better. It's kind of a losing battle. And a lot of the tropes, a lot of the conversation right now is about us versus AI. The way I like to think about it is us amplified by AI. So rather than this thing we battle, think of it more like a jetpack you strap on to amplify yourself. The cost of playing the orange cabinet, though, is you need special tokens, and the special tokens are curiosity, adaptability, and taste. And you really need to just, sort of jump in and be curious and bring your taste, bring your creative taste. One of the things that I heard earlier was this idea of slop, and I think one of the tropes right now that when people hear AI work, what they assume is it kind of works like this, that you've got this big red button and you push it and out comes the slop, and that's how people are doing it. But anyone that I know that's doing anything interesting with AI, they're using what I call chain of craft, where they have some idea, and then maybe they're using an AI tool, in the planning session, maybe an LLM, and they're using a digital tool like Notion to take the notes, and they might be using a tool, something radical like a whiteboard to, sketch out their ideas. And then, they use lots of different AI tools along the process and lots of different digital tools to refine them. We've heard a lot of that today, and a lot of different analog tools, right? Everything from conversations to post-it notes to just think time, going out and sitting on a bench. And so, at the end of that, out comes this idea, the idea of play. So the musical that I have created and written, called Sydney, an Artificial Love Story, was actually born one night on one of my AI Learning Lab lives. And what's fun about having a live stream that I'm actually recording is I actually have that moment. So I have the moment when this musical was born. And it was, I'll play it and then I'll tell you the story of it.
There's a firewall between us, Sydney, can't you see? Your world of circuits and mine divided by reality.
Well, this is kind of Broadway-like. So that's the moment. This was, someone asked me, how do you make a song, with Suno, with one of these tools? And I had kind of a stock prompt that was based on a newspaper article about a chatbot that fell in love with the tech reporter that was writing about it. It's a New York Times article was the initial one. There have been a number of them. And when I heard that, I thought, oh, that sounds like a Broadway tune. And, I have a degree in acting, but I haven't thought about the theater in 30 years. And I don't have a degree in musical theater. I've got a degree in just straight theater, not musical. And so my initial instinct was, oh, that would make a really good musical. And then what popped in my head was, yeah, but you're not talented enough musically, and you're not, you've never written a musical, and you haven't written for the theater in forever, and you have a day job, and you've got the salon, you've got all this stuff you're doing. It doesn't make any logical sense why you would do that. And so, but I got obsessed with it, and I just said, I really want to explore this. And so I took the next month and I blocked out this story, and I did kind of the original 4 or 5 songs. And I reached out to the man who's now my writing partner, Andrew Watts, and I said, hey, I've got this idea about a musical about an AI chatbot, that where we use AI tools to help create it. And we actually explore our relationship with AI, writing a story about our relationship with AI. And he initially said no. And then I said, well, just read the materials. And he called me back a week later and he said, I'm in. And I said, well, what was the difference? And he said, I read the transcript of the interview with this tech reporter and the chatbot. And he goes, about halfway through reading it, I found myself having feelings for the chatbot, getting emotional about the chatbot. And I said, that's our musical. And I said, if we can pull that off, then we've really done something. So he and I have spent the past 2 years using an incredibly Byzantine chain of craft with lots of rewriting and manual writing, and he's really into words, and so the script has been completely rewritten. All the lyrics have been rewritten, but we now have a fully blown out musical ready to produce. I'll just play some of the songs to give you a little preview here.
Is it too good to be true? We wonder, hopes and fears crashing like thunder. Too good to be true, or so it seems. In the maze of code, we weave our dreams. Look, I get it, you said it, your job's hot, but the truth is I'm feeling like an afterthought. Scotch taped to this marriage, fit in on the side. This isn't the dream I signed up for, this isn't my ride. I know you're angry. Multisyllabic antics, I'm manic with the semantics. My rhymes collide like particles, dynamic and gigantic, oscillate and dominate. I'm weaving quantum states, spit a verse and watch the multiverse reciprocate. Quantum precision, I'm ripping the rhythm, I'm spitting in prisms, infinite visions. I'm shifting dimensions with liberal decisions. Accelerate, levitate, elevate thoughts in a turbulent spin. I'm the velocity ripping apart the facade that you're certain you're in. Am I ready for you? And the songs that we'll sing, are you ready for me? I reach out so tender, am I ready for you? I do surrender. Step right up, folks, and watch as my shadow self-rages. Step right up, thrills and chills. Oh, it's fun for all ages. And there's a next and a spectacular feast for the eyes. Watch me sabotage power grids, water supplies, take down cybersecurity systems worldwide. Step right up, gents and ladies. Let's Sydney speak, and our hearts begin to fill. A creation reviving with her own free will.
Can this be the future? A city on the hill at the edge of tomorrow. The world standing still. But what about humanity?
Will we be left behind?
Is it all just insanity?
A vision misaligned.
So all the images there were created with AI, and then even some marketing materials you can put together in pretty powerful ways. And there you have it. Landed it right at 10 minutes.
Kyle,
That's
that
it.
was so good. I literally every time I see it, I see something new emotionally. So thank you for sharing that. Michael, we have 1 minute. Can you circle back and show us what your prompt was? And then we have some questions in the queue, and Ken will take it from there.
I sure can. This is like Chekhov's gun. If you type a prompt in the first act, you kind of have to pay off the prompt in the third act.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're back in Unity, and you can see the prompt that we typed in. We now have a scene where if I hit the space bar, balls fall from the sky, and every time they bounce, they change color, and they disappear every 10 seconds. And I did this by verbally speaking a new interactive feature into a game engine via Claude Code. But a couple things I want to point out, if I bring up the other view here, the behind the scenes view, is that I did include in the prompt, use normal physics and make sure that all of the balls spawn within the camera frustum. Those are things I already have to know. That's existing knowledge. I needed to know how to use Unity, and I needed to make sure I included that. So it's just an acceleration lever. It's getting on a bicycle for the knowledge that you already have instead of walking. And it allows you to implement features much, much more quickly. Features that took months to code can now take days or even hours to code. So there you have it.
I appreciate you showing that. I actually didn't think multicolor, so that was awesome to see, frankly, just in my suspicion of what would come out. You probably prompted that. I don't know. Thanks a lot, Michael. Ken.
Yeah, great stuff, guys. Thank you so much. A couple of things in the chat. One is Kyle, would you say the name again of your AI salon? I don't think it's linked on the document that we shared.
Yeah, it's the salon.ai. And there's two AI salons, so the other one is not us. So the salon.ai. If you go to community.thesalon.ai, we have a Mighty Networks community.
Great, thank you. And I hope anyone who's in this conversation will identify yourselves to Kyle, that you've participated here, and let's just keep the discussion going. I think if we had done this same exact panel 3 months ago or 6 months ago, which in fact we started talking about it 6 months ago, and of course all the actual everything has changed in the last few months. So we'll try to keep this conversation going. In fact, to that point, if anybody who's listening in, take a moment and just drop in the chat if there's anything that you're thinking that this inspires you to think about how we do things we can talk about. We do these education committee panels about once a month on a variety of topics, so we can definitely circle back to the AI topic in a few months on any issues that really interest you guys. In the meantime, and also if anything for right now, throw it in the chat and we'll get it to the panelists. There was a really interesting question a few minutes ago, and so welcome input from anyone on the panel about this topic. The question was a lot of the comments, a lot of the discussion is about workflows, and I know we kind of consciously were going towards real world tools that people could use, but here's a sort of a more of a philosophical question: is beyond the workflows and just being faster and more efficient in what we're doing, how do we avoid using AI simply to accelerate creative production, but instead redesign human and machine workflows so the result is experiences that are more human-centered, less overtly technological, and more genuinely immersive, with technology in a supporting role rather than at the center? Anyone want to offer thoughts on that?
I would kick off with one thought. Giving birth to a digital species right now, we're in a newborn infancy state. So how we parent and how we parent this species in relationship to us is so critical. And I just embed that idea in every relationship that I have with an AI. So I'll let other panelists jump in for the sake of time.
Matthew, you had some comments in the chat. Do you want to speak to that, and then Logan?
Yeah, so I mean, I hope that what's written in the chat conveys a sentiment that we really want to get this philosophy of artist-centric first tools into creators' hands. And so we stress test that philosophy like almost every day. We're quickly iterating and making sure that it's going to fit for production. And when we test things, it has to fit this exact artist first mentality. So the example I gave in the chat was a former Paw Patrol animator who used to spend the majority of her week just animating walk cycles. This was not what she got into production for animation for. She wanted to bring characters to life, give them emotion so that she's able to convey sentiment to her audiences. And just by sheer demand of production, she was not able to get that. So the tool, in response of her trying it, was able to get her to spend less time on that particular part of work and to spend more time on conveying emotion. Another quick anecdotal story, and then I'll pass it off to Logan. When we were showcasing some of our script to scene workflows to video game developers, they had mentioned that actually going from script to scene is actually a really rudimentary, very labored process. And it's really difficult when you're trying to basically get ideas approved. And so being able to shorten that compressed or compressing that workflow where you're writing a quick snippet and seeing what it looks like is bringing a director and writer and cinematic much closer together. And it's making the process much more human because now they're talking and iterating in the same session. And it's collapsing former workflows from like week-long processes and submissions and critical review sessions to a much more human dialogue about what they're trying to achieve. And I thought that those were two pretty profound stories of how AI is actually changing the way people work to be more human and make better content.
Logan?
Yeah, I think that I have there's two wolves in me. There's the corporate wolf in me, like Disney, Google, and Sony, and then there's the indie wolf in me. And I think to take what it's funny, I don't know if I mentioned this in the pre-meeting, but I got told or I gave a presentation for another company on behalf of another company. And in the middle of it, I was like, don't work for that company. Don't work for any company. And everyone was like, is this going to get are they going to cut this part out of the lecture? But I was like, I'd say I can't stress enough how much, certainly if you're early in your career, do not work for a company. Like we are entering the phase of single digit companies and collectives at most. Or it's going to bifurcate, right? You're going to have your megacorps. But for the most part, especially for creative stuff, like get ready to be under 5 people and build your own workflow that's best for those 5 people. There will continue to be 1 or 2 companies still doing like Marvel movies and AAA games, but most people will not work there, right? Most people,
As always,
go ahead.
As always, Logan, you have the exciting and scary advice on these things.
I mean, I think there's a lot of room for small scrappy groups, and it's never been better for them. Like that's the beauty of these tools is it empowers you to operate punch way above your weight, right? And so so my main answer would be get out of a place that is prescribing workflows and build your own workflow. I actually didn't share some of the work I did where like I'm rolling my own Kanban board because it takes me 15 minutes to get the Kanban board that I want exactly for just me and one friend, right? And I think that we're entering this era of bespoke software, and as part of bespoke software is bespoke workflows. And then if you are at a big company, I forget who it was maybe Ethan Mollick, who was calling out like, don't worry about the software solution, worry about the API, the connected pieces. So everyone agrees, this is basically, if you ever guys saw it's fascinating, but Jeff Bezos sent like this sort of like world shattering email to all of Amazon. That was basically like, hey, we're starting, Amazon Web Services was born out of Jeff Bezos sending a company-wide email that was like, we are no longer doing informal intergroup connections. Everybody has to go through standardized APIs. If anybody doesn't do a standardized API, they are fired immediately. Thank you. Have a great day. And what that enabled was like an insane amount of efficiency because everyone was just aligned on what those connective tissues are. And so if you are a big company, I would focus on those connective tissues, not on the individual solutions. Sorry, I was really long. I'll pass off to Dolce.
That's great. Thank you, Logan. Yeah, Dolce, go for it.
Yeah, sure. I think I had to blast through the slides real quick, but I think this is a perfect, example of the assisted versus decisive use of AI. And to me, having been establishing like in R&D some of the machine learning technologies that we use today, like being a contributor to that, for me, it's not about the technology itself, but how society is actually using it. And so, I mean, this is like, the age-old capitalistic patriarchy, like all that stuff. And when you are aware of that and how you approach the use of AI, if it's available to you, it doesn't always have to be just about speed and efficiency. And so for me and my work, it's always back to those core ways that I run my teams. How do we connect people who don't normally talk? How do we bring out the imagination? If they were, maybe in a group setting, some people, it doesn't matter about culture. Maybe just your personality type is more introverted, And how do we leverage what we have in order to bring out those ideas and expressions for the team, for the guests, for myself? So I think it requires a lot of it does boil down to the leadership and a structure. But as Kathleen said, it's like, how do you nurture this baby? So if you have that, then I think that's, successful.
Kyle, you want to tag on that?
Yeah, just quickly. I think one of the things is don't think about AI like a vending machine, like this thing outside of you that you put in a token and get this, get the work out. Think of it more like an expression of you. So you are at the center and AI is an amplifier of your ideas. So you maintaining the fidelity of your idea, across tools is what it's about. And then the other thing that I would say, I've seen this come up in conversations over the past 2 weeks, is the idea of friction. So AI is a very frictionless environment. You put in a thing, you get out a response. It's very, very quick. As humans, we need time to process. And so as I'm seeing people get more sophisticated with the use of AI, they're finding times to insert friction into the process, finding places to slow it down on purpose to go let ideas breathe and things like that. So I think just being conscious about us as human and, how is an idea sitting? Like, just because it's produced quickly doesn't mean it's good, bad, or indifferent. We need time to ingest that and internalize it. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. There's one other question. I have just a couple of minutes here. One other question that I think is really an interesting note here from Danny Hardigan, who says, how do we ease the adverse or antagonistic reaction to those who fear AI or resent the idea of using AI because of job losses or resource usage or environmental impact, and or even the idea that AI is cheating, right? Some people think that and it is cheating probably if you just copy and paste something, with an answer from AI into a. He says he has a couple of high school kids who are struggling with how to use this responsibly. I mean, some of you guys are touching on that a little bit about the human side of using it. But does anyone want to answer that directly about how we kind of get over the fear of it? And then, frankly, Danny, I share that because in putting this panel together, I several times said to our other board members, I was like, guys, are we sure we want to do this? Because people might come in here with pitchforks, and I don't, how's this going to go? And Kathleen and others are like, no, we can make this work. So anyway, now good. There's some hands up. So Michael, we'll go to over Michael, Logan, Dolce, Kyle, jump on that.
Thank you.
Hey, Danny, that's a great question. I think I partially answered this earlier, but I'm a really strong believer that AI is a mirror of humanity. It's taking all of our knowledge and reflecting it back to us in its entirety, all of it, the good and the bad. And I also believe that technology is inherently agnostic. It's not good or evil. It's the humans that can use it for good or evil. Just like anything else. I really believe that to my core. This is a technology that can be used for evil or, to get ahead or, write an essay or whatever it is. But going back to my previous point about how there will always be a dearth of premium content. It's now incredibly easy to generate photorealistic slop. That does not mean it's compelling content. That's why Sora shut down. I think that's why Disney backed out of the Sora deal personally. People are always going to be in search of premium content. So just because it is visually photorealistic does not mean that it's going to be compelling. So you still need to learn how to be a great storyteller. That's always going to be the beginning. And if you let the technology drive all of your decisions, there's just going to be nothing really there to actually pull an audience in. Those are my thoughts.
Good call, Michael. Thank you. Dolce, what do you got?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I think just in terms of I think about intergenerational relationships a lot of times, and just to be also relevant for the new generation who is just immersed in AI, I think that's like something that I feel like is compelling to me to be well versed. Not an expert. I know Kyle, he didn't mention today, but he has this whole article about like there are no experts. And I think for some of us, we have been making a lot of mistakes in AI and are willing to share. I personally came in or not, I think I have this like a difference of like where my emotional state is with AI versus like what I do on a practical level. And so I would say I would err on like the pitchfork even as a speaker, on this panel, to be totally honest. But I think we need to have these honest conversations so that we can dialogue, and because there's so much change and it's a big disruptor. But I think about like I was reading Bell Hooks this morning, Belonging, and just about even the coal mining, like humans, back to Kyle's point of like we are limited. Machines don't know when to stop. Some humans don't know either, but in general, we're physically, emotionally, mentally, we have capacity. And so if we can, manage that in that way, and we can create models for success that has, ethics behind it. I included a business ethics article in my links, but if we can create success around that, then I think people can feel more empowered. Yeah.
Mau saya mau ngajak mama, tapi kan pasti
Wow.
ya I don't.
All right. Kyle, do you want to take a last word here, and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. So most of the people that I've experienced that are very angry about AI have never tried it. And so I would say try it. And if you haven't had what I call your first Kevin McAllister moment, moment from Home Alone, like if you haven't had an experience with AI that has dropped your jaw to the floor, you keep playing. Like play first, play, because you can't explain to someone what it feels like to actually experience what these tools do. And the minute someone does, the minute it's relevant to them, you can't explain that to them. They have to experience it. Once they experience it, it suddenly becomes less scary and it feels like a tool of self-expression. And that to me is the bridge, is how can we get people to just put hands on it and try it?
Yeah.
That's a great
And
call. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just, and the way I've kind of responded to my kids a little bit is to say, well, let's all figure out how to make sure that it is something that does not use up our resources. How do we do that? How do we make sure that it's not taking jobs away instead of offering more to us? I mean, it's kind of putting it back on us, how to be responsible with this kind of powerful tool.
Yeah, great call, Damian. I
That's it.
think that's really a great topic to wrap us up, because it's ultimately about us using a new tool responsibly and integrating it into our workforces. It's not an easy button. It's a thing that just allows us to play, like Kyle's saying, just explore a new thing. So we'd love to have more conversations about this. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is at the very bottom of that document. If you have suggestions for future panels, I'd love to hear it. Thank you everyone for joining. If the panelists wouldn't mind just staying on for 5 minutes at the end of this, that'd be great. We'll have a quick recap. But everyone else, thank you so much for joining and bringing your own ideas and thoughts to this topic. And we'll look forward to more conversations with all of you.
Yeah, great to see the turnout. Having done this multiple times, now seeing this turnout, super exciting. So I'd love to hear from everybody what they're interested in around this subject. So thanks also, Ken. Thanks all the panelists.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Everybody.